Okay, Commissioner Marquez Peterson,
Yes.
there you are. Okay, good. I think we should go ahead and get started. Hello, everybody. My name is Jose Perez. I'm with Hispanics in Energy, and welcome to our Arizona Energy Virtual Forum. We're delighted to partner up with the Arizona Corporation Commission, specifically with Commissioner Leah Marquez Peterson, who I don't know if you know, but she is the first Hispanic, the first Latina appointed to the commission, serving as a commissioner in the state. Just so you know what the significance of that is, we have 198 of them around the country, and they regulate lots of energy companies. And so out of all of those, we only have 6. So you've got a very rare individual in that area that's serving as a utility commissioner. And so we need to not only get to know her, but help her in her duties. And, you know, she's a remarkable person. And after you see today's session and the session on October 28th, you'll see why. So anyway, welcome, Commissioner, and thank you so much for helping us pull this together. And the show is yours.
Thank you, Jose, and so great to see everybody, and so proud to really be helping to facilitate the very first Hispanics in Energy Arizona Forum. What an honor this is to have such distinguished speakers, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them. When I reached out to Hispanics in Energy, Jose has been an incredible partner in helping put this together, and we have planned 2 forums. So today we'll focus on supplier diversity, and then as he mentioned, October 28th, we're going to talk about workforce diversity, workforce development, and we'll have some different panels and so on. So I hope those tuning in right now will also tune in on October 28th, and we'll be sure to get you information. So a little bit more about me. I have been serving on the Arizona Corporation Commission for more than a year. I was appointed about a year ago, and I'm the former president of the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, which is one of the larger chambers of commerce in the country, actually. I'm also a former board member of the United States Hispanic Chamber, and I currently serve on the National Advisory Board for the Small Business Development Center. So certainly this issue of supplier diversity is very interesting and very important to me. A little bit about the Arizona energy market, if you're not as familiar. It's about a $15 billion energy industry in Arizona and represents over 20,000 jobs. Arizona is home to the Palo Verde Nuclear Generating Station, which is the largest nuclear power plant in the nation. And in 2018, which is the most recent data I could find, we actually ranked 2nd in the nation in electricity generation from solar energy. So a lot of activities, a lot of great projects you're going to learn about coming up as we talk more about the energy market in Arizona. Now, how that connects to the Hispanic community, the Hispanic families, Hispanic community comprise 1/3 of Arizona's population, and we're projected to continue to grow at a rate of 12% over the next 5 years. Hispanic business ownership is one of the fastest growing segments in the nation, much less the state of Arizona. And in Arizona, we have more than 125,000 Hispanic or Latino owned businesses, with about 66,000 owned by Latinas or Hispanic women. It's been particularly challenged during COVID-19 for small businesses, and especially I think Latino owned businesses. So as we really focus on the recovery of our small businesses throughout the state in both urban and rural Arizona, this forum today is really going to highlight the huge opportunity within the energy markets. And I know that we can do more in Arizona. So I'm excited to make sure that you get a chance to meet the different panelists that we put together, and wanted to ask for those that have dialed in to learn more today, everybody's muted, but we do want to use the chat function that's at the bottom of the screen. If you have a question for any of the panelists, please type that into chat. I will be tracking that, and Jose will be also, and we'll be asking our panelists. We've packed so much into this forum over the 2 hours that we really do have a tight timeline. If by some chance we don't get to your question, we will be copying all those, getting them to the speakers, and getting that information back out to everyone who's registered. So let's get started. Our first panel today is going to focus on the state of energy and the Latino community in Arizona. We've asked each speaker to speak for about 5 minutes, and then we've got some time for Q&A after that. So Anita, if you could please turn on the video for Director Honorable James Campos, who's the Director of the Office of Economic Impact and Diversity at the Department of Energy. We've got Arizona State Representative Rosana Gabaldon from District 2. And we have Kathy Reese-Boyd, who is the President of the Western States Petroleum Association. So welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
And we'll go ahead and start with Director Campos, if you could address us, please.
Absolutely. And good afternoon, everyone. For me, it's night, but for most of you, it's afternoon. As mentioned, my name is James Campos, and I'm the Director of the Department of Energy's Office of Economic Impact and Diversity, also known as ED. Before I begin my remarks, I'd like to congratulate Hispanics in Energy for his resilience in adapting to the current realities, and to the Commissioner Marquez Peterson for supporting these important conversations at such a critical time in the energy sector. For me, it's a particularly special to be able to speak to you today in the middle of the Hispanic Heritage Month, a time when all Americans take a moment to reflect on the countless contributions of Hispanics and Latinos to the building, shaping, and defending of the United States of America. The U.S. Census Bureau tells us that Hispanics will make up 30% of the population by 2060. If we hope to remain a strong, thriving, and vibrant nation, we need to ensure Hispanics are engaged and invested in our future. This is especially true in the energy sector and the STEM fields. It is for these reasons that the Department of Energy is playing a leading role in promoting STEM education in the Hispanic community, encouraging the involvement of Hispanics-owned businesses in energy, and investing in programs to increase the representation of Hispanics in the energy sector workforce, and much, much more. At the Department of Energy, and specifically at ED, we too are committed to making a difference and ensuring that the energy sector continues to thrive in the future with a skilled, prepared, and available workforce. This is crucial. And increasingly, that workforce is diverse, which means our collective efforts must be inclusive and representative. I know that you too value inclusion and the power diversity brings to your industry. You put your values in action, and so do we. At ED, our mission is to execute department-wide policies to strengthen diversity and inclusion goals affecting equal employment opportunities, small disadvantaged businesses, minority educational institutions, and historically underrepresented communities. In doing so, we ensure everyone is afforded an opportunity to participate fully in DOE's programs, opportunities, and resources. I appreciate the fact that you share our belief that the energy sector must be inclusive, diverse, and prepared for the future in America. Hispanics in particular have played an important role in the energy industry and will continue to do so for generations to come. According to the Census Bureau, 2019 was the first year in which non-whites and Hispanics are a majority of the people under the age of 16. Furthermore, by 2045, the nation will become a minority white at 49.7%. With Hispanics at 24.6%, 13.1% African Americans, 7.9% Asian, and 3.8% multiracial. However, women, African Americans, Hispanics, and Native Americans are consistently underrepresented in both STEM workforce and the STEM education. If we hope to remain a prosperous nation, this trend needs to change, and change now. It is an economic and national security imperative that we boost diverse representation in STEM and do so quickly. And we can't just cruise to that direction. We have to step on the gas, so to speak. Let me tell you about some of the ways that our office is addressing this STEM challenge. At ED, we have launched the Equity and Energy Initiative to support the nation's energy goals by fostering entrepreneurship, innovation, and workforce partnership. Equity and Energy focuses on the importance of increasing interest and access to the energy economy for individuals in underserved communities. Interest and access is key to the pillars that I'll speak about moving forward. We aim to expand the inclusion and participation of individuals in underserved communities in all the programs of the Department of Energy and the private energy sector, from women and minorities to veterans and formerly incarcerated individuals. Equity and Energy is working to secure America's national security and energy dominance through maximizing and engaging all human capital to ensure America's independence for generations to come. The core pillars of the program are workforce development, STEM enhancement, supplier diversity, technical assistance, and energy affordability. Additionally, we'll focus on technology and artificial intelligence, biotechnology, entrepreneurship, workforce readiness for formerly incarcerated persons, and opportunity zones. Recently, our office issued 10 grants under the Minority Education and Workforce Training Program, totaling almost $4 million, with focus areas on workforce development, technical assistance, capacity building, STEM education, and training. Additionally, these awards will serve over 60 opportunity zones. Another program we are proud of is the Minority Educational Institution Studentship Partnership Program, also known as MESEP. Since 2005, this program has offered talented high school, undergraduate, and graduate students an 8 to 10 week summer internship with DOE, both in DC and several national labs throughout the country. Now, traditionally, this program has been in person only. However, due to the recent COVID-19 pandemic, we have adopted and improved and moved to a virtual environment for now. The program provides over 43 interns an opportunity to earn money during the summer break and learn about the important work we do at the DOE, which is commonly commonly not understood completely. They gain skills, garner valuable experience, build a network of peers and federal professionals, and got a sense of direction to where they want to take their careers. Over the years, we have had hundreds of MESEP interns go through the program, and there have been many great success stories. Now, in closing, I implore you to remain engaged and involved in this effort. We need to hold employers, feet to the fire, keep an eye on what we are doing in government, and continue to fill the energy sector talent pipeline with a wonderful mosaic of ready and willing workers, and to be out there in a sense that we are doing something in a positive fashion by continuing and following through with our word and the work that we've set forth. We are relying on you and your partners to ensure our nation's future, prosperity, and competitiveness. I salute you in your devotion to service and making a difference, and I encourage you to do the same with pride, passion, and purpose. I wanted to thank you and tell you what kind of honor it is to be here, to thank Jose, Hispanics and Energy, but to also really implore everyone here. We're in this together. Energy is our economy. It is our future. And as long as I'm in this position, we will make sure that we continue with the purpose and strides that I put forth. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Director Campos. We appreciate your comments. And we're going to move on now to Arizona State Representative Rosanna Gabaldon. Representative?
Good afternoon. I am Rosanna Gabaldon. I'm an Arizona State Representative for Legislative District 2. Commissioner Marcus Peterson, Jose, and the Hispanics in Energy, I offer my appreciation to speak today. Latino community must be engaged as Arizona works to adopt clean energy standards and policies. The future of energy policy must include minority-owned businesses, and we must increase investment in minority contractors, energy providers, and all levels of employment in the energy sector to ensure minority inclusion and to expand participation. I urge the state to escalate the transition to cleaner energy for all communities. I support working through the challenges of clean energy for us to realize the benefits of a cleaner, healthier future, economic development, and overall energy savings. Yet, I have concerns. The standards and policies regarding clean energy are not fully addressing the needs of the Latino community and may disproportionately and negatively harm Latinos. Consumers must exercise caution and carefully study the return on investment for their homes. As the benefit of reduced electric bills can only be realized by those who participate, it can leave the disadvantage of low-income communities to absorb the cost. I am encouraged when I hear the availability of clean energy such as solar power is increasingly accessible and that prices are falling. The clean energy industry will create new jobs. Unfortunately, Latino representation isn't equal. The 2020 U.S. Energy and Employment Report indicates that Caucasians equal over 70% of workers in the energy industry, where Latinos represent 12%. This number should be higher. Historically, energy labor has been supported by Latino migrant communities, and we see it in our state with construction labor. According to a 2013 report by the National Council of La Raza, many of the jobs in this industry sector are highly accessible to Latinos, and Latinos are already engaging in the growing clean energy economy in locations across the country. It is good to know that about 4.4 million Latino-owned businesses in the U.S. contribute more than $700 billion to the economy annually, according to the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I would advocate for legislation to adopt better pollution reduction goals and produce incentives for efficiency programs that provide energy savings to our most vulnerable low-income communities. I'm currently the ranking member on the Arizona State House Natural Resources, Energy, and Water Committee. I will be working with stakeholders to create legislation to address clean energy in the state of Arizona. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Representative Gabaldon. We appreciate your comments. Thank you. And now we'll hear from Kathy Rice-Boyd, the president of Western States Petroleum Association.
Oops, my video. All right, hopefully that worked. There it is. Great, wonderful. Thank you, Commissioner, so much, and thank you, Representative James, for those excellent comments. And Jose, I don't even know where to start with you because you're just you're such a leader in this area, and it's just a pleasure to be involved with you in anything. So thank you for having me. It's a privilege to participate today. This issue is, I think, as we all know, is really critically important. I'm here to certainly learn. I'm here to share a bit about what we're doing, what our members represent, and how we, frankly, integrate equity into the work that we do. I'm very committed to diversity within our organization, and Arizona is certainly one of our states. We also represent Washington, Oregon, California, and Nevada, that are our 5 Western states. So I really am proud to support not only diversity in our organization, but also in what our members endeavor to do as we recruit and retain employees with diverse backgrounds. And I'm very proud that this industry, 50% of the oil and gas industry, is racially and ethnically diverse. We know and really frankly appreciate that diverse experiences and backgrounds are really important to reflect the communities in which we serve and operate. So it's a very core value and principle to us. And so as an association, and our job is to provide affordable, reliable energy to the consumers and constituents that you all represent in the states we operate. And we do that from not only finding crude oil in the ground and natural gas, obviously in Arizona, extremely important, but then we find it, we transport it to refiners who make very useful products, gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, renewable natural gas. We're invested as companies in all of these products, but get them to the consumers safely and do it in a way, again, that's adequate, reliable, and affordable to everyone involved. We do work very closely with government leaders, with regulators, with the media, with the public. And I would say it really emphasized for me an inclusive dialogue about our shared energy future, because frankly, it's only our mindset that sometimes keeps those conversations from happening. So inclusivity is really, really important as we plan going forward. And I would also say the importance of balancing the economy with our sense of social equality and the health of the environment. All of that has to go hand in glove. We can't have a sustainable energy future with only one. It has to be all 3, and a diverse energy mix that we have a sustainable energy process going forward. I want to talk a little bit just about the California governor's executive order that just occurred to ban fuel-powered vehicles by 2035. And in my opinion, an indication in some regards as an inequitable policy. And the reason I say that is it has serious implications on the cost of living for Californians, especially will put people out of work, will destabilize our economy if we don't do it right, especially when we're coming back from, as you all know, I don't need to tell you, the economic devastation of COVID-19. So I support big and bold ideas, but they are better if they're affordable for all of us and that they're based on real science and facts and data, and not emotion and fear, because the challenges before us to achieve these goals are definitely large, and we have to make sure, it concerns me when the order says, make sure lower income communities have more bike paths, buses, and pedestrian lanes. And to me, that's the state picking winners and losers in terms of really who deserves to drive cars. So these are promises that we have to make sure that we guarantee Californians and any state, Arizonans, can get to work if they can find work, all of which I'm very excited to hear the panel discussion. So we bring that same approach in how we work in Arizona. I think many know we have quite a bit of workforce, at least 24,000 workers and independent contractors who work in the oil and gas industry, whether it's production or pipeline or refining or manufacturing or distribution or retail. We're a very supplier of good jobs in the Arizona community. And we want to be a good partner in that, including the $1.2 billion in taxes that we, of course, support transportation and schools and health and social services and all of those things. But really want to talk more about an expanded partnership to get people into the field. We have strong relationships with labor. We support many of the apprenticeship programs. And really for today, frankly, and in closing, I just want to learn more about these opportunities, how we can partner, Commissioner and Representative and James, as you said, with communities in Arizona, and more specifically the Hispanic community, to really introduce you what I think to, frankly, incredible careers that our industry provides today, tomorrow, and into the future. So thank you, Jose, for allowing us to participate, and I will look forward to the rest of the discussion.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. We really appreciate that. And we don't have any questions in the chat now, so just want to remind people to type your questions in if you have them. We'll move on to our next panel. And this panel is, I think, particularly important because it talks about the economic impact of COVID-19 on Latino families. And we've asked three particular leaders in the state to speak, and that's Cynthia Zwick with Wildfire, which you'll learn more about, Reverend Doug Bland with the Arizona Interfaith Power and Light, and then David Adame, the president of Chicanos por la Causa. So we're going to start with Cynthia. If you'd like to turn on your video and address us, please.
Thank you. Hopefully my video's on. I can see myself. Hopefully others can see me as well. And thank you, Commissioner Marquez Peterson and Jose, for this opportunity. I'm really very grateful to be part of this. I wanted to start just by telling you a little bit about Wildfire. We are an anti-poverty organization working to create an Arizona where everyone can thrive. And as part of our work, we support the work of community action agencies, which serve every county in the state of Arizona and serve our low-income members of the community. At the Arizona Corporation Commission, we share the voice of low-income families in rate proceedings and in other policy discussions as well. And we also administer, on behalf of all the major utilities in the state, their bill assistance programs. So we have a partnership of 32 organizations, nonprofits, government, and faith-based organizations throughout the state that are helping us distribute those funds. Last year in Arizona, the Community Action Agency staff served about 142,000 individuals. Of those, 47% identified themselves as Hispanic, and 52% were either under the age of 17, 13% were over the age of 60. So it's a pretty diverse group from an age perspective. 40% of the 50,000 households that are served by the community action agencies were living at 50% of the federal poverty level, which is about $6,000 a year. So it's really an unmanageable amount of money. 71% of the households served were living at 100% of the federal poverty level, which is about $12,700 a year. The energy burden for Arizonans living at 50% of the federal poverty level is about 24%, meaning that 24% of their income on an annual basis goes to paying their utility bills, which is high. For an average customer, that tends to be in the range of 3 to 5%. So you can see that there's a significant burden that they face. In 2019, the number of households eligible to receive LIHEAP, the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, was estimated to be about 653,000 households. The number that were actually served was close to 41,000. So you can see that there's a huge gap in the number of eligible households here in the state and the number that are able to be served. We have a tendency to be the least funded per capita state in the country. So we have been working to increase the level of funding in that space. COVID-19 has had significant impacts on the low-income community here, as it has in other states. Unemployment rates are incredibly high and continue to be high, with ongoing claims being filed every week. We have an economy that relies heavily on the service industry, which pays lower wages generally. I think one of the things that has benefited us over the last couple of years is that our minimum wage is a bit higher at $12 an hour. But because of the unemployment rate and the lack of jobs at the moment, or the number of people who've had their hours reduced, we're seeing an incredibly at-risk population again. 40% of our jobs in Arizona, 46% pay less than $15 an hour. So you can see that we still have a lot of work to do in that respect. Many of the families who are making the income that we mentioned above are also now without health insurance. And one of the new implications that we're seeing are families that have been affected by COVID. Adding to their financial woes is an inability to pay their healthcare bills. So utilities throughout the state of Arizona have stepped up, and we're truly grateful for them suspending the disconnections throughout the COVID crisis and through the summer. Many of them have now extended the disconnection moratorium through the end of this year, so through the end of December. We're grateful for that as well. But the concern that we now have is that many of those families are going to be building up significant amounts of debt. Along with that, the CDC has put a moratorium on evictions for renters through the end of the year. So we are seeing families now coming into the Community Action Agency offices and other organizations across the state that haven't paid a utility bill in potentially 8 to 11 months. So that can be a significant debt. And we think there are tens of thousands of those folks out there. So we're advocating at the federal level for additional LIHEAP funding. We're advocating for additional funding for rental assistance. But the priorities that we're really looking at kind of on a longer term basis at the Corporation Commission and throughout the state of Arizona is the implementation of affordable rates for all customers. We still feel that many of the rates that utilities charge are a little high, sometimes too high for low-income customers to pay. So we're looking at how do we mitigate some of those costs. Increased bill assistance support. So while the companies have been incredibly generous and we're grateful for their support, we think that this crisis is going to require additional support as we go forward. We're also looking at increased funding, and Commissioner Marquez Peterson has really led some of this discussion, for increased funding for weatherization, which has longer term implications. Many of you appreciate it. If you can make a home more efficient, the bills go down, and that is a significant impact and a longer term impact than just the bill assistance programs. And then the other thing that we're working on is a technical solution that will allow individuals seeking assistance to apply online without having to go into an office, seek the assistance that they need, be determined eligible, have their utility account credited, and never have to leave their home. We understand that the need far exceeds the availability of resources at this point in time, but the other thing that we know people are frustrated about is the ability to get appointments and to find out if the funding is even available. So we're hoping that we can mitigate some of that concern and provide a little bit more dignified process in some ways and a streamlined approach to support. So thank you for allowing me to be part of this panel today.
Thank you, Cynthia. Such interesting information. Really appreciate that. And again, people can post questions into the chat. Let's move on to Reverend Doug Bland with the Arizona Interfaith Power and Light.
Thank you, Representative Marquez Peterson. I'm grateful to be with you today. Arizona Interfaith Power and Light is a spiritual response to the climate crisis. Last October, before COVID-19 struck, Arizona Interfaith Power and Light had a gathering in what has been called the most toxic zip code in the country, 85040. It's a zip code in South Phoenix where a majority of people of color live, 84% Hispanic, 18% Black, where for decades the dirtiest industries and most polluting businesses have found purchase there because of environmental racism. We were there for an event called The Right to Breathe, which has become a title that's almost prescient as I look back now. I Can't Breathe has become a meme to describe all kinds of social ills that plague us, including police brutality, pollution, Western wildfires, climate change, soaring poverty, and the impact of the pandemic, especially on communities of color. At the Right to Breathe, we invited a professor from ASU, Dr. Karwat, to come, and he presented 3 geophysical maps. One map showed the population in the greater Phoenix area where the most people of color live. Another map showed the highest incidence of young children. And the third map showed the highest incidence of toxic air. And when you lay all 3 of those maps on top of each other, the strongest areas for those things exist in Maryvale and South Phoenix. We also invited people from those communities to tell stories. So there was a junior high cross-country runner who had to drop out of the cross-country team because the air was so toxic she couldn't breathe. And if she can't breathe, she can't run. There was a deacon from a Catholic church in Maryvale who moved years ago from his family, from LA to Phoenix to get out of the bad air of LA, only to see the air become more and more poisoned here in Phoenix over the years. Now COVID-19 has given us a 4th map to lay on top of those other 3. We're seeing that the pandemic is hitting the same communities twice as hard as white and more affluent neighborhoods. The theological word that I hear often for the pandemic is apocalyptic. In most people's minds, that means something to do with the end of the world, but it actually means the unveiling or the revealing. The distress we're seeing in Hispanic communities isn't new. The coronavirus has made the realities there just almost unavoidable, like we can't see them, but we have a great capacity for ignoring them. Here's the thing that makes it not just senseless suffering, but injustice. While some are losing jobs, big corporations like Amazon are making a killing. While some can't pay their electric bills, Arizona Public Service is raking in record profits for shareholders and asking the Corporation Commission for a rate increase. While some can't pay rent, others are buying their dream homes. While many are struggling just to feed their families, the stock market rises. COVID-19 reveals precisely the kind of injustices that the Hebrew prophets and Jesus railed against when they accused the rich of selling the poor for a pair of shoes. Last Friday at the memorial service for Ruth Bader Ginsburg, her rabbi talked about how there was a piece of art in RBG's office that had a quote from Deuteronomy, justice, justice you must pursue. It's repeated twice because justice isn't done easily or with one fell swoop. It happens day by day by day with small acts and decisions that are made in boardrooms and neighborhood meetings and city councils and voting booths and at the Corporation Commission and at the Capitol. And us also at our dining tables, one small step at a time. We see some promise in Commissioner Marquez Peterson's customer relief package, and we're grateful for the moratorium on shutoffs, but more needs to be done. We signed a letter with our partners at CHISPA urging APS to use their exorbitant profits to out and out forgive the debt accrued by ratepayers during COVID-19. My job as a faith leader is to quote the prophet Amos, "Let justice roll down like waters." It's all of our jobs to work on the plumbing. Fortunately, we have decision makers and commissioners and politicians and utility representatives here on the panel whose job it is to design plumbing systems every day. It's well past time to get out our wrenches and our pipes and make sure that water and electricity, that jobs and justice are distributed more fairly. Justice, justice, we must pursue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend Glenn. You gave us a lot to think about, certainly. And we're going to, our final panelist today is David Adame, the president of Chicanos por la Causa. David, could you turn on your video, please? And you're muted, David, if you could unmute.
After such a great start, and I was muted.
There we go.
Well, thank you again, Commissioner. I'm excited to be invited to this discussion. Chicanos por la Causa is a 51-year-old community development corporation. We started here in Arizona, but we're in Nevada. We're also in New Mexico, in Texas, and most recently we just expanded into Southern California. So really growing and trying to help our community. But the question is, how was our community impacted? And it was hard. Our community was just starting to recover from the 2008 recession, the foreclosure crisis. Many of that's when most of the wealth was in our community, was in their homes, and many of them lost that at that time. Well, we did early on in March in the pandemic, so we served about 621,000 people last year. We did the survey as best we could, and it started, and the top 5 things that people were worried about or stressed about was rent and mortgage assistance, food, utilities, which we're talking about today, job opportunities, and childcare. So once we saw that was the impact happening to our community, we had to try to figure out how can we support the devastation happening in our community. And the COVID-19 positive tests were happening, and of course they were, because a big part of our community are the essential workers. I think I saw a stat that said the national population, Latino, is about 18%, but we were 36% of the essential workers. So, and they weren't getting the proper PPE and those types of things. So many factors happening from a health perspective, from an economic perspective. And so we had to try to figure out what we can do. So with Wildflower, I thank them. We're partnering with them with the city of Phoenix with $2 million to help with utility and mortgage assistance. Doing that, we also have a contract with the state of Arizona to do more mortgage assistance. We have a $2 million contract with the state to do COVID-19 testing deep in our communities, because many of the folks, they're the essential workers, so they couldn't go to these big events. You had to drive up your car to get your test. And so we really focused on that. On the part that's interesting, so we're, as a nonprofit, we are tied to the utility or the energy business. We actually have a subsidiary for-profit that's a dry utility design and coordination company called Third Engineering. So we're working with APS, SRP, and Southwest Gas in California, Nevada, and Arizona. But we're also trying to work with the utilities to find out how do we provide workforce opportunities. So that was one of the top 5 I referenced earlier, job opportunities. We know that about 1/3 of the jobs that were lost during this pandemic are not going to come back. So how can we partner with the energy sector, whether it's line folks with great careers, or whether it's training people to be energy auditors and helping them start businesses so they can do this, working with programs like SWEEP that could provide resources to help these folks start businesses. And then we're also looking to support businesses with, we happen to be, Chicanos por la Causa happens to be a U.S. Treasury certified community development financial institution. So we actually participated in the payroll protection program known as PPP. We actually made $26 million worth of loans, helping 900 businesses, and saved about 4,000 jobs. But many of those businesses, just like the individuals, we're helping with programs with Wildfire and the state and APS. they needed help with utility assistance as well. So these PPP loans were also a way that we could help bridge these families they're devastated, these small businesses. And half of the 900 loans that we made in that program were to companies of people of color. So we're helping to keep our community afloat. But these are the things that we need to continue to work with our community. Again, they've been hit harder than normal. We're number one in all the bad categories. Number one in positive COVID-19, number one in loss of businesses. So those are the things that we need to rally and work with our partners in the energy sector to create the jobs, to create other advocacy in order to support our families on an individual basis and also our small business community. So I'll stop there.
Well, thank you so much, David. Your CPLC, I don't think people realize just the breadth of your services and the multiple states that you operate in. Can you define that again for us?
Yeah, we've been around 51 years. We have about 1,200 employees. We're probably the third largest. I know my friend David Lizarraga, we're behind them because they're bigger than we are. But we work in Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, Texas, and most recently we just expanded into California with plans to be in Utah and Colorado in the near future.
Wow, that's really something. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's see, we've got a couple questions here. First off, one for Cynthia. So Cynthia, if you're still with us and can turn on your video. There you are. Question about, I know that during this pandemic, we've had families that have been furloughed that have never experienced
one of those little Cokes.
Excuse me? Oops, I heard something. But there are people that have not experienced this before, the furloughs, the financial challenges. How are they finding the community action centers? How are we increasing promotion or awareness to those families so they can also apply? Though I know we don't have enough resource, but how do we reach those kind of families?
Well, I think a couple things are happening, and it kind of depends on the resource that's available. As David mentioned, there are a number of programs that are providing support now, both for rent and utilities through the CARES Act. And there's been a lot of publicity about that. We do administer the City of Phoenix program, which includes payment for water, electric, and gas bills as well, which we're grateful for. I think the other thing we've been doing is a lot of social media outreach. We've been encouraging folks to reach out. We've also been encouraging folks to reach out to their utility companies and tell them about any concerns they have with the ability to pay, talk about payment plans. We think payment plans are great, but if you don't have any money, they're not as helpful as they could be probably. So I think just more and more information. We are also planning to do some co-messaging with SRP to help get the word out about the programs that are available and the assistance as well. Excuse me, and we'd be happy to co-message with any other utility company. So I think it's just consistent information being shared through all channels possible to let people know what's available and how to access it. Because you're absolutely right. The folks that have never needed help before find our system to be pretty convoluted. And so even though there's been some additional funding available, people don't know where to start. And so as much information as we can share, the better.
Yeah, excellent. And I think the concept you spoke about having people be able to go to their smartphone and sign up, or to have a video call or something of that nature, because we know so many families and low-income families are challenged with high-speed internet to their home, in addition to all these other challenges. So, but whatever we can do to make it easier in this COVID-19 environment.
Exactly. Yeah, we hope that this technology solution, which we plan to have up by the end of the year, I mean, there's a lot of different factors, but we think that will help a lot, even just from an information perspective.
Thank you. David, kind of the same question to you. You work with so many families, multiple states, I know, but here in Arizona, I'm sure you're seeing new families that have that have never been furloughed before or gone through these financial challenges. How are you doing outreach to those kind of families that aren't familiar with all the resources that are out there?
You know, we're partnering with anybody who will partner with us. We have a pretty good following on all our social media, making sure that's getting out. We have friends in the media, both in television and radio and print, that are helping us get the word out. And the unique challenge, which is, you know, the elephant in the room, is we actually help start a fund to help the undocumented folks. Those are folks that are still working in the fields, bringing our foods to our table, right? And so we've been trying to help them. We also been trying to advocate with the state around education, because you alluded to that with the technology gap. You know, I'm sure many of you saw the young ladies sitting outside of a Taco Bell, right? That's unacceptable. And we have to come up with a good solution, and it should be a utility that should be made more wide for everybody to be able to access it. I'm afraid for our Latino community, especially because 62% of all kindergarten kids in the state of Arizona are Latino. And I'm afraid, it keeps me up at night, that we may lose a generation of our children just because we don't have the proper access to Wi-Fi and all those types of things. So we're trying to do the best we can to advocate on all levels. The private sector has been great. You know, the local folks, APS, SRP, Southwest Gas have been doing what they can to work with us to get support. And we're not shy to call these folks if there's a certain case that we need to, as Cynthia was alluding to, we're going to battle for our community and push where we need to, but we're also going to support good friends as well when they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, excellent. And you know, even at the Arizona Corporation Commission, we have limited jurisdiction in telecommunications. And I've actually been serving on a broadband access emergency task force throughout COVID-19, really looking at, with the Department of Education and the Commerce Authority and others, how we can assure that different rural communities, tribal communities, low-income areas have access to broadband. And a representative from Chicanos por la Causa was just on our last call. So excited to have you guys engaged with our task force.
Well, I've said, you know, I'll give you an example. There was a district, elementary school district in Phoenix, primarily Latino area. They don't have their own system. They're lucky that the high schools, the bigger high school system that they're a feeder school to, is allowing them to use their system. We're in 2020, and in the 5th largest area in the country. It's unacceptable, especially in our communities, that we're not dealing with it. So I know it's not the energy part of it, but it's a utility in my mind, and together we can get things done.
Yeah, and I want to point out, especially for the audience, if they know families or folks that are struggling with broadband in particular, as well as utility assistance, most of the telecommunication companies have a low-income program that's tied to their federal poverty rate. So Cox, as an example, is called Connect to Compete, but there's a website that the state has put up called connect-arizona.com, connect-arizona.com. If you send friends and family there that are having trouble, all the low-income programs, access to technology is there, free public Wi-Fi spots, all of that to just try to help folks around the state. So that's one step and one tool we can use. And then we had a question also, and maybe we could start with you, David, at Chicanos por la Causa. If you're comfortable, can you tell us the relationship between your group and the energy companies? What partnerships exist now?
Well, with APS, we are a direct utility assistance provider with them. We also do a lot of outreach on helping people understand how to conserve energy, understanding the programs so that, you know, they can do the best to manage their system. And then together with them, we do a lot of other just general outreach to work with low economic communities to make sure that other services and who they're supporting and how they can be a better partner for our community. So those are the type of things that we do with them. And I'm very appreciative of the partnership with them, especially around the utility assistance. We're trying to look at other markets now, like up north in Coconino County, where Flagstaff is at, more in the southeastern part of the state, Douglas, kind of, you know, more southeast Arizona. Some of these pockets, as we've been educating, that we have this program, and there are also markets for this particular Arizona Public Service that we're doing them. SRP as well, we do a lot of stuff with them and helping avoid drownings, because they also deal in water, doing programs to educate their community in that way, because we don't want to lose any of our children. One's too many. So those are the types of things that we're doing with our utility companies.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And Cynthia, if you could turn on your video, can you talk about the relationship you have with the utility companies?
Sure. I think it would be safe to say that we have completely schizophrenic relationship with all of the utilities. On one hand, we are constantly pushing them to do more and to try some new things, and to be what we would argue would be a little bit more responsive to some of our rate requests or their rate requests and our position in those requests. But at the same time, we really recognize the importance that they play and the fact that they are trying to do the right thing by their customers. We don't always agree, as I said, but we work pretty hard to create strong and positive relationships with each of them. Because I guess what I have found is if we can be working together on solutions, it's much more effective than if we're just always throwing stones. And that hasn't ever worked for us, and that's not really a strategy that we like to deploy. But that isn't to suggest that we don't get into hot water at times and get sideways with positions that the utilities take. But I think the one thing that has worked for us is we have a healthy respect for one another, and we understand what each of us brings to this community and what role we play in the community. And so, you know, I think I think that's important. And I think all of us have a couple of things in common. We want our all of our customers to be healthy. We want them to be able to thrive. We want them to be able to pay their bills, and we want safe, affordable, reliable energy. And so, you know, there has to be some give and take, I think, at times. So schizophrenic. You know, we work as hard as we can on the issues that we believe in. Don't always agree, but we really do try to partner where we can.
Hey, Leah, the other thing that I would add is, I forgot to mention, to be clear, I alluded to it in my early discussion, but being an engineering company, we also work with SRP, Southwest Gas, and APS as a direct vendor. So under their diversity in vendors and providing engineering services, we also do that with it.
I didn't realize that. Okay, great. Thank you. And then Reverend Bland, would you like to talk about relationships with the faith-based communities and the utility companies?
Yes. One of the things that I do is serve with Cynthia Zwick at Wildfire with the distribution of money that has been set aside by utilities that can be used for heating, air conditioning, repairs. So I'm grateful for the efforts that utility companies do to serve our community. And I can appreciate what Cynthia said about being schizophrenic with our utility companies, because we're always pushing them at the same time that we thank them for the ways that they do serve our community.
Thank you so much to our panel. I think you've really set the stage for the rest of our discussion on the importance of supplier diversity and outreach to the Latino community. So thank you again. And if you'll please stay on, I'm sure people might have additional questions if you're able to. We're going to move on now. Very excited to have a national speaker with us. This is Commissioner Satsi Oliva from the state of Illinois. And beyond being an incredible commissioner, she's also the chair of the subcommittee for supplier diversity at our national organization, which is the National Association of Regulated Utility Commissioners. And just honored to have Commissioner Oliva with us today to kind of give us that national view and also what's worked in Illinois. So thank you, Satsi, for joining us.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, good evening. It's evening here in Chicago, where I live, and good afternoon to all of you in Arizona. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Before I begin, I want to thank Commissioner Marquez Peterson for inviting me and Jose Perez from Hispanics and Energy. I love sharing my thoughts on this imperative and call to action around the country. All of us on this virtual forum understand this alarming need for greater representation of Hispanics in the energy industry, because when we look around at our places of work, the conferences that we attend, and other industry forums, Hispanics are highly underrepresented. So it's critical that together we work on developing the necessary framework and communicate the need for greater diversity in the utility and energy industry to expand our sphere of influence. The alarming statistics that you heard earlier today from Department of Energy Director Campos warrant us to act and leverage the paths that have already been created to drive greater Hispanic inclusion across all of the utility sectors. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we've done nationally at our National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners. So there are 198 commissioners across the country that regulate utilities, and I'm the chair of the Supplier and Workforce Diversity Subcommittee at NARUC. Last year, the subcommittee adopted 2 historic resolutions, and these resolutions expanded the encouragement for strategic partnerships to foster talent and diverse professionals in the utility industry and the engagement of diverse financial and professional service providers by investor-owned utilities. So we saw that one of the critical issues that we have been addressing time and time again is increasing the workforce gap caused by the rapid rate of retirements in the energy industry. And this is going to exponentially happen over the next 10 years. So we're going to have in the energy industry a loss of institutional knowledge and subject matter expertise, which could result in limited training capabilities and also economic ramifications. So to bridge that retirement epidemic and the need for greater inclusion in the industry, the subcommittee proposed that NARUC expand its support for long-term strategic partnerships between utilities, commissions, and other interested stakeholders and academic and professional institutions that serve underrepresented communities. The resolution champions the collaboration with America's minority serving institutions and Hispanic serving institutions. Strategic cultivation of the next generation of utility professionals ensures a reliable and sustainable workforce. So the subcommittee collaborated with the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities, HACU, Hispanics in Energy, and the California Public Utility Commissioner Emeritus Tim Simon in drafting this resolution. So it develops a pipeline of talent from early education so that we can maintain and empower our current and future workforce. Another resolution was to encourage change in the underrepresentation of racial and ethnic minority financial and professional service providers across all utility sectors. So these are law firms, financial services firms, engineers, consultants. We believe that financial and professional services such as, like I said, investments in legal play a critical role in various aspects of the regulatory model. So it's imperative that the investor-owned utilities that we regulate utilize diverse suppliers for professional services to achieve equitable and economic performance. By increasing the participation of diverse firms, there's a greater potential for growth and viability of women, veteran, and minority-owned businesses. The subcommittee expanded upon an existing resolution that supported supplier diversity in financial services to include all professional services. So before it was only financial services, but we included professional services to include the ones I mentioned: legal, accounting, engineering. So we were very happy that both of these resolutions were adopted last year. They can be found on NARUC's website under the Resolutions Index. And our subcommittee continues to encourage diversity and inclusion in the utility industry through its programming and collaborative initiatives. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you about are some of the exciting things that are happening in the state of Illinois. I'm a commissioner in the state of Illinois, and we place a high value on diversity and inclusion. Illinois is one of the few states in the country that statutorily requires our investor-owned utilities to report on their diverse spend every year and on what their goals are going to be for the next year. We have an Office of Diversity and Community Affairs at the Commission, which oversees the collection and review of annual supplier diversity reports from all of our utilities. These reports include a breakdown of all spending and procurement with women, minority, veteran-owned businesses under state law. And once the reports are reviewed by the Commission, we have a public meeting where we invite, and the CEOs of each of our investor-owned utilities are required to appear and report on those goals and on that spend. And these reports are public. The meeting is public, so anyone can attend and see the questions that we ask and ask questions themselves. So I believe the only way that we can truly make progress is when we measure that progress. And we measure that progress in Illinois, and it has resulted in success. In 2019, the utilities in Illinois reported nearly $3 billion in spend on diverse suppliers. So we're very proud of the work being done in Illinois, and every year that amount gets higher and the reporting gets better. So we think that works. The other state that has mandated reporting by statutes is California. Other states do have memorandums of understandings with their utilities, also requiring the same information, and some states have workshops. The key, I think, is to show that as a commissioner, you're engaged and you're interested and you want to know what your investor-owned utilities are doing to increase supplier diversity within their utilities. So I think that's a good first step. Another thing that we have in Illinois that works really well, that was formed in 2015, is that our investor-owned utilities all belong to the Illinois Utility Business Diversity Council. The board members of that council are our utility CEOs. And so it's a forum for best practices on advancing the growth and utilization of diverse businesses in Illinois, provides education, information, and technical assistance for utility stakeholders on issues of business diversity. And it helps utilities with their procurement goals for minority-owned, women-owned, veteran-owned small businesses. They meet quarterly and they conduct economic impact studies to see how their best practices are impacting the economy. And I will finish with how this is such an initiative for the state of Illinois. In August, our Governor Pritzker, announced his 8 principles for a clean and renewable Illinois economy. And this is the governor's plan to move Illinois' energy sector into a sustainable future. And one of the 8 principles in his plan is advancing equity in the clean energy economy. And the energy sector should reflect the diversity of the state of Illinois. So these principles include incentivizing renewable energy developers to contract with diverse suppliers, modify the procurement process to include equity actions for renewable energy credits, our adjustable block program, the community renewable generation program, and solar for all. So it's a program that will hopefully prioritize the procurement from entities that meet certain equity actions, including actions for the hiring of minorities, people with disabilities, and disadvantaged businesses. Another thing that his principles for clean energy hope for are incentivizing renewable energy developers to diversify their corporate teams and set bold goals for diversity and ownership. And also having a renewable energy developers that do business in our state to report on their diversity efforts to the Commerce Commission and the General Assembly in the same way that our investor-owned utilities are required to do. And also just we're trying to get a more robust and standardized supplier diversity reporting to the Commission, focusing on diverse spend within Illinois. So I hope that what I've shared with you about what's happening nationally and within Illinois helps. And if you have any questions about how that's all working in Illinois and more about our best practices, I am happy to share with you and happy to share what we've learned. So thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Oliva. We've had a couple of questions come in. One is, can you talk about, I guess, how important it is to have a Hispanic utility commissioner, in your opinion?
That's a great, great question. And we actually have two on the Illinois Commerce Commission. My colleague, Maria Bocanegra, is also a Latina. And the Illinois Commerce Commission has always been diverse. I think we were at one point, the most diverse in the country. It's so important. I have to say that we are in the year 2020, and of the 198 commissioners in the country, I believe we're at only 6 that are Hispanic. And that is just not okay, because the population of Hispanics in the United States is just so large and growing so much that there should be more. I think leaders and leaders of commissions, leaders of utilities, and the workforce should definitely reflect the communities that they serve. So, as a Latina, I bring a different perspective than maybe some of my colleagues do. I speak Spanish. I have had policy sessions relating to consumer protections in our alternative retail supplier space. And I had people come in and give the presentation in Spanish, because a lot of times it's the Spanish-speaking communities that are most affected by bad actors in this space. So I wanted them to know about our new policies and our new rules that added extra protection for them. So it's so important to have a Hispanic commissioner. And I'm glad you asked that question. That's what I think.
Obviously, you're passionate. I know I've been on my commission for a little over a year. And certainly during that time, I know I've put new practices in place. I'm sending out press releases in English and in Spanish. I've built a Spanish media press release list, because I don't know if we had one before, and making sure that I'm communicating that throughout the Latino community in English and in Spanish, so that they're aware of the resources and the programs and even the debates we're having related to certain rate cases. I think they need to be aware. We had another question related to telecommunications that I think I brought up earlier. I'm serving actually on NARUC's National Broadband Task Force, because I'm really interested in this issue. And I know Bob and Margarita asked this question, and we are tracking in a spreadsheet every state that has some kind of action they've taken on telecommunications, whether they have a state broadband office, whether they've modified their universal service fund, which is a fee on your phone bill, and where that is applied. And so, Commissioner Oliva, do you have a broadband or telecommunications, I should say, or landlines under your jurisdiction?
So telecommunications in Illinois is mostly deregulated, but we do, our General Assembly is very much focused, and our governor is focused on rural broadband issues and the landline issues, but generally for us, it's telecom is deregulated.
Okay, and I know for us, certainly throughout the nation, pricing of telecom is deregulated. Our role is primarily landlines at this time, but just very interested in how we help families and kids that are trying to do school online and people working remotely to make sure we have that equity. But thank you so much, Commissioner Oliva. It's such an honor to have you here. I know it's late for you, so if you can stay on, that would be great.
Yeah.
Sure. But you need to go, I understand. But thank you. So we're going to go ahead and move on now to our supplier diversity panel with our electric utilities. We've asked our 3 largest utilities, Arizona Public Service, Salt River Project, and Tucson Electric Power Unisource, to have their key leaders on the call with us, or on the Zoom call, to really talk about existing programs that focus on supplier diversity, and then talk about upcoming projects where it could be an opportunity for the business owners that are on the line now. Why don't we go ahead and start with Julie West, who's the Vice President of Supply Chain for Arizona Public Service. Julie.
Good evening, everyone. Afternoon and evening, depending on where you're living. And can you start the slideshow? Thank you. So I'm very happy, Commissioner and Jose, that you invited me to talk about our supplier diversity program at APS. I've been a resident of Arizona for 22 years, primarily in the aerospace business, but I was fortunate enough in July to move over to APS. So looking forward to working with the Hispanic community on our supplier diversity program. Next slide, please. At APS, we have a promise to Arizona. You know, we want to do what's right for the people and the prosperity of Arizona. We want to create sustainable energy for the future of Arizona. And we want to serve our customers with clean, affordable, and reliable energy, which I've heard echoed multiple times throughout this afternoon. And we're going to achieve this in 3 ways. I mean, we are designing for tomorrow. We all have a goal to have clean energy in our future. And we're looking at how we can do that in the right manner, in the right timing. We're empowering our workforce. We'd love to have more Hispanic people in our workforce. And we really want to empower our workforce to give us ideas on how to improve in serving our customers and our community. And then we want to succeed together. We want to work with our suppliers and our customers and how we build that clean, affordable energy as we move forward. Next slide. APS has got a well-developed diversity program for our suppliers. It was established back in 1992, and there was a couple key fundamental things that we wanted to commit to, and that was to provide technical assistance and training, which I'll talk about a little bit, for our diverse suppliers, and coordinate and facilitate matchmaking opportunities. There are many times where we work with the other energy and utility companies that are on the call today to bring suppliers together to share information about who we're utilizing, what companies are out there that are well-versed in the utility industry. And then of course we want to support our community with initiatives that improve on the minority women-owned business enterprises and who we're using. This past year, we actually had a roundtable where we brought together some small businesses and talked about COVID, the impact it was having on their companies, how to work in a virtual environment, which all of us had to learn to do. So we've got a lot of commitment around our program that's been in place since 1992. And some of you may ask, well, how do I become an APS supplier? So next slide, please. So first of all, APS, you have to have a recognized certification. And I'm sure most of you are aware of this, but 51% of your business has to be owned, managed, or controlled by at least one person who's either a minority status or a woman. And at APS, we accept certifications for minority-owned businesses. We also have women-owned business certifications that we accept, and then small business certifications. And we're really pleased to announce that in 2020, June of 2020, we actually added LGBT to our approved small business certification. Once you have that certification, if we go to the next slide, something that we do offer our suppliers, especially if they're smaller and they're not used to working with large companies like an APS or an SRP, we actually have a diverse supplier training program. And in this program, which has also been in place for many years, over 20 years, we assign an APS expert that's from the supply chain to work and instruct local businesses on how to work with companies in the utility business. What happens is the participants of these companies, they connect with specific supply chain procurement professionals that are on my team, and we also gather people within our business units, and we partner with those suppliers through a series of curriculum. It's eight different sessions right now, which we're actually looking at how do we do this virtually, especially in light of COVID. We want to be able to put this training in a virtual environment and actually be able to hit more suppliers with it. But the types of topics that we cover are strategic planning, how to grow your business, responding to RFPs, because when you're dealing with large businesses like APS, RFPs can be a little intimidating. So we want to make sure that our small diverse suppliers are prepared for that. How to work with utilities business, how to develop a capability statement and also their company presentation, so that when a small business goes into an RFP, that they're well prepared and presented. Next slide, please. So to become a supplier of APS, you do not have to go through that training. That is just something we offer. It's really a simple process to get registered. So we ask companies, and we're asking you today, to go into the APS website under supplier diversity, and you simply apply by entering your company information, attaching your business certificate, and most importantly, you need to tell us what products and services you offer. Because what happens is once your company name and the products and services get into our system, which is called Power Advocate, we use that system when we send out RFPs. So when an RFP is going out to suppliers, we'll search that database to find out who is out there from our small business and minority companies that can do those activities. Next slide, please. We were also asked to talk about future opportunities for our suppliers. And we really want to partner with suppliers who could help us create that clean, affordable energy for our customers. Now, the topics that I have listed here can go out for RFP anywhere from 1 year to 3 year time slots. And I don't have the specific dates, but some of the key commodities that we're looking for suppliers in are transportation, IT services. We do a lot of construction, as you're all probably aware of. That's a key area for us. You can be in facility management, building maintenance. We talked about different services, whether it's repair services or engineering services. These are all areas that we could utilize support in. So please, when you go into the website, make sure you list the services that you can provide. Next slide, please. So as the new Chief Procurement Officer, Vice President of Supply Chain for APS, I'm really committed to growing our diverse supply base. Any supplier that is in the diversity realm or that focuses on sustainability, it's a key focus. And APS is committed to building and growing those relationships through some of the things that I've talked about around the programs that we offer to the suppliers, expanding our relationships, and also opening up doors, not only to APS, but other utilities through some of our partnering that we do in our roundtables. And then we also, APS is really big on investing in small businesses and the community around Arizona. So I'm really hoping that you take the time to look into our diversity program a little bit closer, and then let us know what areas that you can focus in. Thank you very much for allowing me this time.
Great, thank you so much. So appreciate that presentation. And if you have questions, be sure and put them in the chat. We'll move on with our panelists and ask our questions at the end. So thank you, Julie. So now we'll hear from Patty Pyle, who's the Manager of Supplier Diversity at Salt River Project, or SRP. Patty.
Is the video not going?
We see your picture.
Can the video, oh, it's starting now, I'm sorry.
There you are.
It says the host has stopped it.
There you are, you're on.
Okay, very good. So good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to be with our energy partners, APS and TEP, as we power up Arizona together to identify opportunities for our diverse and local businesses. So as I go through today's agenda, I want to share with you that at SRP, we are vested in supplier diversity because we know the benefits of our endeavors, our economic empowerment in our communities and our state. So let me begin with our mission and vision. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So supplier diversity was established in 1995 by our forward-thinking leaders that believed supplier diversity should be intertwined as part of our DNA. So we have two initiatives at SRP, and they are supplier diversity and sustainability. We promote and support each, as well as we align with our diversity and inclusion, because all three departments really complement each other. We have high standards of ethics and integrity that are embedded in our process, and we continuously weave a culture of corporate responsibility that proves it improves the lives of our customers. So as stewards to the community, we focus on supplier diversity as a crucial component of growing our sustainable supply chain. As identified on this slide, our mission includes small, local, minority, women, and veteran-owned businesses. And we articulate our vision that employees are educated, informed, and they support the importance and benefits of supplier diversity. And they're accountable for the success as well. So the key item to note on this is the middle paragraph that says, diverse businesses have ample opportunity to compete in RFPs. So how do we find these small local businesses? Go to the next slide. We have supplier diversity, and we really is facilitated by two individuals, myself and Darlene. All the stars around us are advocates, our buyers and our analysts in the supply chain. So how do we connect with the diverse suppliers? It's really a circle of collaboration. We start internally. We have them stored in SAP, which is our purchasing platform, through supplier diversity database and our enterprise management system. We utilize our employee resource groups, and all the way to our internal users. Our end users are the ones that really provide the opportunities, and many times they make recommendations. As you move down, you see we have Pat Crenshaw from the President and CEO of the Pacific Minority Council. It's our certification organization, and they connect us with MBEs in Arizona and San Diego. The council provides programming specifically to certify, develop, advocate, and connect MBEs with our corporate opportunities. As we move down, we see our community partners, and they proved to be even more important during COVID-19. As we leveraged our community partners, we requested PPE products from their constituents with an amazing response. They were quick to retool, pivot their operations. They were creative and responsive to our requests, and several received purchase orders and contracts. Of course, relationships are the tools that gain intelligence and promotes collaboration, provides community betterment. So many of these businesses share their same suppliers, and they provide supplier recommendations to each other. We do that quite often. Moving up to Weback West, you see Dr. Pamela Williamson. She provides access for women-owned businesses over 7 states. And many of the diverse businesses are women-owned. And she also provides programming, certification, and events that connect these women businesses to opportunities. And of course, finally, our Industry Alliance provides access to diverse suppliers from the National Diversity Utility Council. We have Edison Electric Institute, the Western Energy, and UISCA, which is our Sustainability Supply Chain Alliance. As a matter of fact, they had their conference on Tuesday and Wednesday of last week, and throughout the conference, they talked about the importance of supplier diversity to have a healthy supply chain. Next slide, please. So I do want to really talk about some of the major ways of connecting with our Hispanic business community. Of course, Julie talked about what it takes to be certified. We actually have a relationship with the National Minority Supplier Development Council that has 980 certified minority businesses, and we can really access them through our affiliate with the Pacific Southwest Minority Development Council. They also have the Utility Interest Group. I'm sure Jose knows about them. SRP participates in the organization, and we collaborate with all the utilities across the US for sourcing opportunities, and we share utility suppliers that are working for other companies across the company. I'll have to say the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, I would have to give a shout out to Monica Villalobos. She's awesome. So she's been the catalyst for bringing minority businesses together for opportunities. And SRP and APS were part of the original 5 corporations participating in the Circle of Excellence. Those recognizing corporations that spend at least $1 million with minority businesses here in Arizona, which is pretty phenomenal. But we also support and sponsor the Black and White Ball, Datos, Power of the Purse, and so many more programming events that come through the Chamber of Commerce. You have the MBDA that is housed with the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and that's Alika. She shares information on minority clients and opportunities. And I put the SBA on here because we actually did a how to do business with SRP early last year. That was a panel with all of our other colleagues. I know APS joined us with that one as well. And it was with the White House Economic Development, working with Shivani. So we do try to work together as a community. Of course, the East Valley Hispanic Chamber, we sponsor and support them on their events. And they also have an East Valley marketing report that we help them on. And of course, Webec West, again, they support minority women-owned businesses with opportunities, events, and programming. And the next slide, please. So our strategy, you know, this is always an ongoing journey. It's been successful, but it includes several components for us with supplier diversity. Reporting, we set targets. We provide quarterly updates to our leadership. We give it to our analysts and buyers and our end users. We also provide an annual report because, as what was mentioned earlier, as you know, what gets measured gets improved. So SRP buyers are also considered advocates for our diverse business. They participate in relationship development events and introductions, and they're really an extension of our supplier diversity efforts to move the needle for inclusion of diverse businesses in their RFPs. Of course, communication is key to advancing our success, but we do publish a newsflash, quarterly newsflash, highlighting diverse businesses, and we share the success stories, which are distributed to SRP employees across the enterprise, just bringing awareness of all the diverse businesses that are available to them. And of course, we foster supplier growth capacity through education, such as our Small Business Leadership Academy, kind of similar to APS, but much shorter than their D-STEP program. But we provide scholarships to develop diverse suppliers, providing them 8 weeks of education. And this is really to improve their business acumen. And this is in partnership with Arizona State University. So for the past 11 years, we've graduated 147 small diverse businesses, which has been wonderful. Next slide, please. So there is a universe of opportunities that we can provide an addendum with more detailed information for interested parties. You can just email me at supplierdiversity@srpnet.com, or I'm sure Anita and Jose have the information. They can share it as well. But we have not only our RFPs that are going out, but we also have prime suppliers that have first-tier contracts at SRP. And they have opportunities from time to time. We also introduce our diverse suppliers to them. But as you can see here, we have basically 4 chemical-related RFPs, over 30 opportunities in generation, inventory, transmission, distribution. Our facility team has identified 6 or 7 large contracts, and we have miscellaneous RFPs for the next, we identified for the next 2 years. Next slide, please. So in summary, we would ask you to contact us electronically at supplierdiversity@srpnet.com. We are working on an Ariba software for our external portal, but that has not been implemented yet. So we're still doing electronic documents. But provide your capability statement with your core offerings and contact information. And if you have a certification, we do ask you to please include that. Then we share those with our internal resources. We put your information on our enterprise contact management system. And then we would encourage you to look at the documents that we have available and check back with us at least 4 to 6 months out so we can put your information back in front of that RFP team. People have a tendency to forget things through the course of a year. So it's very important to get your information back in front of them again. So in closing, I would add at SRP that we lead supplier diversity with purpose, to create and promote economic empowerment for minority women, veteran, and our small local businesses. So I want to thank you for your time and your attention and allowing me to share SRP's diversity journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patty. Great.
Thank you, Patty.
Very interesting. And now we're going to go to Kathy Reese, the Vice President of Customer and Human Resources at Tucson Electric Power and Unisource Energy. Kathy.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Peterson and Jose, for coordinating this opportunity to come together on such an important topic, supplier diversity, and then the conversation that's about to come next month on workforce diversity. So a little bit about UNS Energy. We're a fully integrated utility. We serve approximately 700,000 electric and gas customers across Arizona. So while we're in the top three, we're much smaller than, of course, APS and SRP. But our generation resources are comprised of coal, natural gas, solar, wind, and renewable energy generation that includes storage. Our renewable energy resources total about 551 megawatts alone. Next slide, please. At UNS Energy, our 2,000 employees and almost as many contractors focus on how we execute our strategy in unison, in concert with our vision. So this vision was recently created by our employees, and each word has special meaning to us, especially when it comes to helping the communities in which we all live and to thrive. Next slide, please. Our social impact and giving programs, we invest about $2.1 million statewide annually. They're focused on low-income assistance, followed by education, and then the environment and the community. Next slide, please. So during COVID, really, this pandemic, we have understood that keeping the lights on for our customers is more important than ever. For example, powering up our hospitals, our emergency services, as well as our homes, doubling as offices and schools, is critical to the health of our community. We continue to keep the lights on with about 85% of our office personnel moved to remote work. We've staggered shifts, rotated work schedules to protect our employees. But throughout all this disruption, we've continued to procure products and services in order to provide our customers with this life-sustaining power. We've also added an additional $700,000 of direct COVID relief, $200,000 to wildfire, the utility, as Cynthia Zwick spoke of earlier, utility assistance added to our already existing donation of $300,000, as well as $500,000 to community foundation groups. Our employees, some of our employees also sit on the selection committees where funds have gone to more than 200 nonprofits, including Santa Cruz Council on Aging, children's clinics, Sister Jose's Women's Shelter, Prescott Meals on Wheels, Boys and Girls Club, and Thrive in the 05. We're reviewing opportunities to invest in nonprofits that provide direct and local support to Black, Indigenous, and people of color. We're having deep discussions in both internal and external to the organization on racial justice, equity, diversion, diversity, and inclusion. And when during the social unrest over the summer, when our headquarters was damaged, we worked with the mayor's office and the employees as well as the community groups to paint murals of healing, promoting the motto, "We are one Tucson, somos uno." Next slide, please. So really our goal is to invest local. Approximately 30% of our total spend on goods and services is directed to sustainable, small, disadvantaged women and veteran-owned businesses. We engage with local agencies and plan to expand this outreach, such as the SBA, to expand opportunities for the small businesses in our area. And we're also identifying sourcing opportunities that can be targeted specifically to small businesses. Next slide, please. So how do you do business with us? Well, understand the importance of adopting innovative product standards that promote sustainability. We will apply consideration for those suppliers that demonstrate that they are trying to minimize waste, trying to minimize landfill disposal, that they are impactful into our environmental as well as our economic improvement for our communities, and also demonstrate a culture of reduce, reuse, and recycle. We too need to get better at our outreach, and one way we're doing that is we're enhancing our supplier portal, and I know that it's going to be stood up sometime in October, I believe it is. So the new portal will be easier to use, focus solely on suppliers for goods and services to make it easy for suppliers to reach out to us. We also have our energy efficiency programs that we use a tremendous amount of innovative products and are continuing to look at suppliers that bring products that fit our programs. Most of those contracts require an RFP. And if you'd like to find out more about the programs and services that are under the umbrella of our energy efficiency programs, please reach out to Francisco Castro, and I've included his email in the slide. So I hope that this short presentation has given you a bit of insight into our company and that you could potentially see yourself as one of our suppliers to help us be an exceptional energy provider, as well as to positively impact our employees, our customers, as well as the communities in which we live and thrive. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate the presentation. We have a question that's come in that applies to all three of you. So if you want to turn your videos on, Julie, Patty, and Kathy. But can you each share your thoughts on whether sufficient numbers of Hispanic businesses are contracting with your companies? And is there room for improvement to increase contracts with Hispanic-owned businesses? And maybe we'll start with Julie at APS.
Sure. You know, sometimes it's hard to track the Hispanic companies because sometimes their certificates are under women-owned. So do I think there's opportunity to expand? Absolutely. There's always opportunity. And I look forward to trying to identify some different areas.
And are you able to identify what is your diverse spend right now from APS?
Yes, we do track our diverse spend, and we track the number of suppliers we have. And I'm happy to say that there's, out of our top 5 diverse spend suppliers, 2 of them are Hispanic owned.
So what total budget is spent on diverse suppliers?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
But what is the total spend for diverse suppliers?
It's a couple $100 million.
Okay, great. Thank you. And SRP, Julie?
Patty.
Oh, sorry, Patty? Sorry.
That's all right. Not a problem. Thank you so much. I think there's always room for improvement as we look right now because we have SAP as a reporting tool for us. We looked at having about 10% Hispanic spend, but we always have room for improvement. And we're always looking for diverse suppliers and to add to our database for our spend. And this past year, we spent $184 million with diverse suppliers.
And I was very impressed with your connection conduit slide that you put up.
I'm telling you, it's a great way to get diverse companies. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. And then Kathy, can you talk to, I guess, Hispanic-owned businesses as suppliers?
So we have goals that we put in place for 2020 to help us better identify our suppliers right at this time. What we know is that our small businesses and veteran women, disadvantaged owned businesses represent about $85 million of our spend. The goals that we had in place were just, spend's not the right word. you know, we just got behind a little bit in trying to manage COVID and keeping kind of the lights on and keeping our employees safe. So I know that our procurement group, I think Patty mentioned it, was hustling to try to procure PPE for our employees, as well as some of the communities like Santa Cruz County, where we did procure masks for them and distributed them when we found out that they didn't have access to masks. So we were focused on that. We're back on track now in terms of improving our supplier diversity and our ability to understand who our suppliers are and have better reporting as well.
That's great. And it's good to hear you have a supplier portal that's coming out. I think you said in October. I think when you have that and send your announcement, many of us on the phone can help spread that word and get it out throughout Arizona.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, ladies, for participating. And I'm sure we're going to have more questions for you. We're going to finish up our agenda, and any questions that come after the fact, I'll be sure to send to each of you for response. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So our final speaker during this forum, which again, I'm so excited, first Hispanics Energy Arizona Forum that we've ever had. But we have got a national speaker in David Byrd, who is the director of the Minority Business Development Agency at the federal level. We thought he'd be a great speaker to kind of wrap up in terms of resources and programs available for minority-owned businesses. So, Mr. Byrd, I believe you're on the phone, correct? You could unmute. Have his slides up. Let's see. So, Anita, we might need to unmute Mr. Byrd. And he may be the 202 number that I see in the participants list. Let's see, he's still muted. We'll just give him another minute to see if we can unmute him. No? Okay, maybe he stepped away. And if he comes on, we'll be sure to jump to him. But in the meanwhile, I thought what we could do is wrap up and pitch it back to Jose Perez, who's the CEO and president of Hispanics in Energy, to talk about maybe some of the relationships you've been able to form throughout the country, Jose, and why you had an interest in doing this in Arizona. And Jose he's not muted.
Okay, I'm,
You are.
can you hear me? Okay. I tried to turn on, oh, here it goes. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, I'm not sure if I'm on, but anyway, yeah, I think that, well, first of all, congratulations to you, Commissioner, for bringing together such a stellar group of people today to have a very powerful discussion. I mean, I think there was a lot of cross-learning, and in many ways, this is exactly how it happens. I remember the first time we did one in Illinois and in other states, and there's always a beginning, and it's interesting how much synergy is created after this. And in Minnesota, I know after we did that one, we had some state legislators that introduced some legislation that you know, are engaging some of the companies there, and so you know, the effect of these discussions is very, very positive. And so the idea basically is to get more people involved, especially those from the Latino community, in both contracting and in jobs. The jobs portion, we're going to have an extensive discussion next month on that. And so, but I think that today was very telling. It was very, very powerful. I think this is going to lay out a very strong foundation, perhaps, for some long-term vision of what might happen in Arizona, especially in this arena. And clearly, what we've experienced with the supplier diversity arena is that this process increases the number of bids that the companies get, and they like it because they get better quality, sometimes better pricing, and so and it expands the economic opportunity that they offer to the community out there, and so it has a really very positive impact. And more importantly, the companies have stronger bottom line results at the end of the year because their behavior increases their business strength. And so it's a very consistent across the board, almost very impressive. So, I think today was, from my perspective, has been, one of those incredible gatherings of some very incredible people in the state of Arizona. And so I really appreciate your leadership. And I totally agree with Commissioner Satya Oliva. It's very important to have a Hispanic on the commission. And so, we're very delighted that you're there. And we wish you all the luck and hope that you will be there for a long time, if possible.
Thank you.
And so, I think that I don't know if Mr. Bird's available now, but if not, then I think that pretty much concludes my comments. And so,
and I'll add, if that's all right, Jose, that we started out this conversation today by talking about the $15 billion opportunity that's in the utility industry. And if we can start that conversation for some small businesses, some Latino-owned businesses in the state that perhaps hadn't considered serving that industry and open the door at APS or SRP or Tucson Electric Power or Southwest Gas or so many of the water companies we regulate, I think that would be a great success story. We also heard today kind of the baseline or that foundation where each of the utilities is currently at in their diverse spend.
Right.
And I think that we heard best practices from connections and training and portals and things that they're creating. So those of us that are advocates on the line, whatever we need to do to get the word out to folks throughout the state and to get it out to diverse businesses, I think is really key. So I appreciate, again, Jose, your support in launching this
absolutely
Arizona Forum. And thank you again to all the speakers and panelists and presenters. This has been recorded, so we'll be sure to put this out to folks who weren't able to be live with us. But I think it'll be very valuable information. And please don't forget, we are hosting workforce diversity, workforce development with Hispanics in Energy on October 28th. So look for an email from us so that you can register for that. And we'll be involving our university system, community college, and some career technical education conversations too.
Oh, you know what? I just saw this note. David Byrd is going to hang up and call back in. So you want to wait for a little bit, Commissioner, or probably should.
Sure. So we have a few minutes left. So I'll see what other questions we have here. We've had some thank yous from a number of companies that do work already. Oops, and I think we've got unmuted Mr. Byrd.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I was beginning to wonder whether you guys really wanted me to be part of this today. First, you made me work in trying to get into the meeting, and then I couldn't. And then nobody could hear me.
No, we can hear you now, and your slides are up, sir. So feel free.
Well, let me get back on it now. I had to hang up and get back in. So anyway, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to today's program and allowing me to be. I hope I'm not standing between anybody and dinner time, because we've had dinner here. Commissioner Oliva up there in Illinois and Chicago, I want to wish my best wishes to her. And I know that you've already heard from my federal colleague, James Campos, who's doing great work at the Department of Energy Office of Economic Impact. And we're doing some work with him as well. And I'll talk about that. But you see my first slide for MBDA, Winning the Future is Now. If you can go to the second slide, please. For those of you who don't know, MBDA is 51 years old this year. We were started in 1969, and at that time there were 332,000 minority-owned businesses in this country. Today there are 11 million that employ 8 million people, that is responsible for $1.8 trillion to the U.S. economy. So if minority-owned businesses did not exist, we would have to invent them. Next slide, please. MBDA has only one mission and one mission alone, and that is the growth and competitiveness of minority-owned businesses. We are the only agency in the federal government that has that mission statement under Executive Order 11625, which the President has given that authority down to the Secretary of Commerce, and the Secretary has delegated that authority to MBDA. Next slide, please. We operate on three things: access to capital, access to contracts, and access to markets. Access to capital, MBDA helped MBEs gain more than $1.6 billion in capital last year. Access to contracts, MBDA helped minority-owned businesses get $3.1 billion in contracts last year, 68% of which were with the private sector. And I make that point for a reason, because a lot of people have the mistaken impression that that MBDA only helps minority-owned businesses get government contracts. Not true. In fact, almost 7 out of 10 contracts that we help minority-owned businesses get with our 24 business centers and our four manufacturing centers and our 4 export centers, 7 out of 10 contracts with the private sector, only 32% with government. And then access to markets, we help facilitate more than $300 million in export transactions last year. We just signed a new MOU with the Exim Bank, Export-Import Bank, which we're going to help minority-owned businesses explore even more financing options when they're trying to do exporting. Next slide, please. If you'll see on this slide, you'll see where all our business centers are located around the country, our advanced manufacturing centers, our export centers. We even have a federal procurement center in which we teach minority-owned businesses how to go after government contracts and win. If you see our 4 export centers, the one in Chicago handles Africa, the one in Sacramento handles the Pacific and the Far East, the one in Miami handles the Caribbean, and the one in San Antonio handles Latin America. I'll talk about some of the projects and some of our programs that are on the right side as we go further. Next slide, please. Let me talk about the CARES Act. You know, MBDA did have some responsibilities under the CARES Act that the Congress gave us some very specific responsibilities. MBDA got $10 million under the CARES Act, $10 million for 11 million minority-owned firms. So if you break that down, the Congress allocated about 91 cents per minority-owned business in this country. So we were given $10 million, and we were specified to split that money. We took $7 million and split that amongst our business centers around the country, and we took $3 million and gave that to several national minority chambers of commerce across this country. We gave them to 5 different chambers of commerce. Those chambers were the U.S. Black Chamber, the U.S. Hispanic Chamber, the U.S. Asian Pacific Islander Chamber, the National Business League started by Booker T. Washington in 1900. They just celebrated their 120th anniversary last month, and the National Urban League. So that's what our specific responsibility was, to give those 2 grants to those areas, and they use that as far as education, technical assistance, specifically to help MBEs during this COVID time. Next slide, please. You can see we also invest, and we have funds, and we do have a person on board for Native American business development. We've invested $3.6 million in 13 projects across Indian country to ensure tribal entrepreneurs and tribal businesses are better connected to business opportunities and training. If you can see the Native American Business Development Act, we had some specific responsibilities under that, and that's expanded interagency participation and to leverage resources for Indian country. We put together a playbook for the Office of Native American Business Development, which is located within MBDA, and we have a subject matter expert who runs that for us. We've enhanced our congressional and tribal relations. MBDA has its own intergovernmental and legislative staff. We continue stakeholder engagement, and we also do have to submit an annual report to Congress. We also, as part of that, serve as an expert and strategic advisor to the lead. As I told you, we have a subject matter expert who reports directly to me. And one of the priorities of that office includes strategies to encourage outside investment to Indian country, identifying opportunities and challenges to expand broadband and digital infrastructure in Indian country. I heard some of our previous speakers today in our segment here talk about that, talk about broadband. I'm in the process of putting together an initiative with NTIA to look at grant monies that the FCC has set aside, over $3 billion, to expand broadband in rural communities. So I want to team up with NTIA and the FCC to explore some of those possibilities in Indian country and other rural communities around the country. Next slide, please. The $1 billion fund. MBDA has embarked on an initiative. This was started under my predecessor, but I'm continuing it, where we have hired the National Association of Investment Companies to put together, we've given them a grant to put together a blueprint of a fund that we're going to put together to raise $1 billion to invest in minority-owned companies. The blueprint is ready. We are in the process of briefing the Secretary and Deputy Secretary of Commerce, and we have already set up capital calls where we're going to call on hedge funds and sovereign wealth funds to put into this fund. Our goal to raise $1 billion, of which would be invested in minority-owned businesses. Next slide, please. We have the Minority Business and Technology Initiative, what I like to call our Amazon initiative. We have spent the better part of a year. We finally got it, announced it, and got it going this past April, where if you're a minority-owned business and you have some goods and services to sell, we can put you on Amazon's platform. Amazon has put together an online academy, and if you graduate, go through the academy, you'll be ready to put your goods and services on Amazon's platform. And Amazon has pledged to work with us to put anywhere from 200 to 400 minority-owned businesses per year to add onto their platform. Next slide, please. Enterprising Women of Color Initiative, another one of our big programs, which we started last year at our MedWeek conference. By the way, this year was our last 2 weeks ago. We just completed our 37th annual MedWeek conference. Our first one, it was in an all virtual space, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes, but we broke all kinds of records in terms of participation, views, everything. But our Enterprising Women of Color series, which is just taken off like wildfire, we have Coca-Cola and the National Minority Supplier Development Council as our partners. And this year, because of COVID-19, we've turned it into a series of webinars, which we had an average of 1,800 women of color join us on these seminars. And at the very last seminar, the last one that we had in May, we had Taraji P. Henson of Empire fame join us, and we had 25 women of color entrepreneurs on the webinar with us. You should know this. It's a very interesting statistic. 25% of all new businesses in this country are started by women of color. That's where the future is. That's where the future is going, because by 2042, this country will be a minority-majority country. Next slide, please. Our plan, which is winning the future now. It's not about winning the future, it's about winning the future now. We're focusing today to meet the needs of industry for tomorrow, and we're doing that by helping minority-owned businesses do three things. Go digital, helping minority-owned businesses learn, especially in this COVID environment, that if you're not going digital, if you're not doing things, if you're not using even the basics of AI, you're going to be left behind. You know, I'm seeing some very interesting things out there, and that I've told people before COVID-19, I believed in 10 years the U.S. would be a cashless society. I believe now in less than 5 years we'll be a cashless society, because I've seen businesses that less than 5 years ago wouldn't take a credit card. Today, they won't take cash. When you go in the hood and you see a sign that says, "We take Apple Pay," you know things are changing. So the second piece is MBDA Go Global. One of the things that we do, as I've said, we help minority-owned businesses that are interested in exporting. We're looking at additional financing options for those who want to get into exporting. And we do trade missions. We run trade missions all over the globe to help minority-owned businesses connect to other businesses in other parts of the world. In fact, just last week, I got a letter from the new South African ambassador to the U.S. who wanted to explore with us connecting South African MBEs with MBEs in the U.S. And 2 weeks ago, I signed an MOU with the U.S.-India Small Medium Enterprise Council, where they want to work with exposing MBEs to businesses in India. And then lastly, I talked about the MBDA think tank. I talked about the piece with Amazon, but MBDA is in the process of starting its own in-house think tank to do research on minority-owned businesses, and we're working with historically Black colleges and universities and minority-serving institutions and their professors to provide research for our in-house think tank. We came to the conclusion that when it came to minority business development and research, no one was reaching out to MBDA to get our thoughts and opinions and work with us. And so we said we need to start putting out our own white papers, our own research. We've got one of the biggest research institutions out there for data, and that's the U.S. Census Bureau. And this is something else that we're working with my colleague, Jim Campos, over at Energy, because he's going to provide access to the supercomputers that crunch all that data that they get and that we're going to get from the Census Bureau. Next slide, please. This is only old by about a couple of weeks, but it allows me to talk about the success of that we had at MedWeek 2 weeks ago. As I said, MedWeek has been going on for 37 years. This was our very first year going virtual. We had tremendous success. We had over 5,000 people register for the conference. We had over 12,000 views of our videos and our in-house and our live programming. The Secretary of Commerce helped kick off the first day for us. We had people from 10 foreign countries tune in at any one given time. And at one time, on the Thursday of the conference, we ran the conference for 5 days. At one point, we had 2,800 people online at one time viewing the conference. And the conference from Texas to California, the two top states that were watching and tuning in for the conference, and then it was Maryland and Virginia coming in after that. It was a fantastic conference, considering that we've never done anything like this before in an all virtual environment. And it's going to make us take a look at how we're going to do the conference next year. I don't think we'll ever go back to a completely in-person conference, but we'll have a combination of both. And by the way, by going this and doing it this way, we saved over $150,000. And the most that we ever had at an in-house conference was 300 people at any one of our conferences, and we had over 5,000 people register, and then we had over 12,000 views of our videos, because what we did was, if something was live and you missed it, we archived it and allowed you to come back at a later date. If you missed Monday and you came in on Wednesday, you can look and see what happened on Monday. So I'm going to stop there. I'm just going to put a plug in and say that we signed an MOU with my great colleague, Jim Campos at Energy, because of the great program he has, Equity and Energy, over there. I have great admiration for what Jim has done in the utility and energy industry. One of the things that they've done is that they've identified jobs in the energy sector that no longer need a background check for those folks that are coming out of incarceration. And that's a great match with a program that we have. I don't know if people are aware of the fact, but we too have a program where we take people out of incarceration and turn them into entrepreneurs. Georgetown University is one of our partners on that, and we just graduated the latest class out of that program this past June. So I'm going to stop there in case anybody has any questions. I know I've given a lot of information there, but we're doing a lot of great stuff at MBDA. Want to let you know, as we come into the next year, a couple of things I'm going to concentrate on. One, I'm going to concentrate on 8A firms, because I've got some research that shows the number of contracts are going down to 8A firms. And I want to focus in on our procurement officers on that, because according to the law, you can give an 8A firm up to $5 million as a no bid or sole source contract. Number two, I'm going to focus on minority vets who own firms, because I don't see enough focus on minority veterans who own firms. And if I focus in on that, that means I can bring in DOD and the VA as partners with me on that. And then lastly, I'm going to focus on the business of space. And I'm not talking about the space in your room in your house. I'm talking about outer space, because ever since the retirement of the space shuttle, NASA has basically outsourced the business of space to Lockheed Martin, McDonnell Douglas, Boeing, Virgin Galactic, all the big boys who are already doing business with DOD. But minority businesses are not in that space, no pun intended. And so I'm going to focus on helping minority businesses get into the business of space, because a lot of people may have missed that just a couple of months ago, the president signed an executive order giving these companies the right to start mining the moon and other asteroids for minerals. And some of you may not be aware, but some of our technology initiatives that have happened here on hard ground were started as part of NASA, as part of technology transfer. And I'll give you one quick example, because a lot of us use it when we put on our sneakers and we use Velcro. Velcro was developed for our NASA astronauts when they were in space, to keep the stuff on them without having to worry about tying a knot or something to that matter. So I'm going to stop there. I thank you very much. I welcome any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Director Byrd. I think that's a perfect way to wrap up our Hispanics in Energy Arizona Forum. So many exciting ideas and resources and tools that you provide through the MBDA. Jose and I will capture everybody's PowerPoints, make sure we get them out to everybody who registered. I want to thank again Jose Perez, Hispanics in Energy President and CEO, for leading this effort. Thank you all so much for being here this evening, and have a wonderful night.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.